Here's a sentence that should stop you cold. The Pentagon just confirmed that B-52 Stratofortress bombers, aircraft designed in the 1940s, first flown in 1952, are now flying a secret directly over Iranian soil. Not launching cruise missiles from the safety of international airspace, not standoff strikes from hundreds of miles away. Over the country. That single sentence tells you more about the state of this war than any press conference ever could. Because the B-52 is not a stealth aircraft. It is enormous. It shows up on radar like a flying shopping mall. You only send the B-52 over enemy territory when you are absolutely certain that the enemy cannot shoot it down. And that is what today's video is about. Stay with me. Because the economics hiding behind this military development are going to affect your gas prices, your grocery bills, your pension fund, and possibly the next decade of global trade. I'm Brandon, and this is Backdoor Economics, where we follow the money through the smoke. Now, real quick, if you're watching this for the first time and you want the economic analysis the mainstream media skips, hit subscribe right now. Every video we make connects the headlines to your wallet. Now back to it. Segment 1. What just happened? The military picture. Let's establish the facts before we get to the economics. On February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a coordinated air campaign targeting Iran's nuclear sites, its ballistic missile infrastructure, its naval forces, and crucially, its leadership. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening strikes. Since then, the U.S. has been relentlessly expanding its air campaign. First came the B-2 Spirit, pure stealth, first strike precision, able to penetrate defended airspace. Then the B-1B Lancer, fast, heavy, conventional strikes deep inside Iran. But on March 31st, 2026, General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, walked to a Pentagon podium alongside Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and said something extraordinary. He said, "Given the increase in air superiority, we've successfully started to conduct the first overland B-52 missions, which allow us to continue to get on top of the enemy. Overland." That is the key word. Here's why it matters strategically. The B-52 is not stealthy. It flies at subsonic speed, about 650 miles per hour. It has a radar cross-section roughly the size of a barn door. Every air defense system on the planet can see it coming from miles away. Iran had Russian-built S-300 and S-400 surface-to-air missile networks. Some of the most sophisticated air defense systems in the world. When those systems are intact, you never send a B-52 overland. Never. The fact that the B-52 is flying over Iran right now means only one thing. Those systems are gone. Destroyed. Neutralized. Through a combination of F-22 Raptors, F-35s, precision munitions, and what the Pentagon describes as cyber, space, and electronic warfare assets, the U.S. and Israel have effectively blinded Iran's air defenses. In fact, the U.S. has now struck over 11,000 targets across Iran and destroyed more than 20 Iranian naval vessels. B-52s and B-1 bombers arrived at RAF Fairford in England on March 9th. Forward deployed from U.S. bases to cut transit time. They can carry up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance per sortie. Bombs, cruise missiles, precision-guided munitions. Iran's airspace is now, for practical purposes, owned by the United States Air Force. And that changes everything about what comes next. Segment 2, the economic shockwaves, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, let's talk about your money. Because while jets are flying over Tehran, something else is happening that is hitting you at the pump, at the grocery store, and in your retirement account. The Strait of Hormuz. 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, a tiny bottleneck of water between Iran and Oman. And through it, every single day, flows roughly 20 million barrels of oil. That's about 20% of the entire world's daily oil supply, plus a fifth of global liquefied natural gas. When Operation Epic Fury began, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued warnings prohibiting vessels from passing through the strait, essentially closing the world's most important oil choke point. Before the war, about 138 vessels transited the strait every day. By late March, that number collapsed to 11 vessels on some days, near zero. The consequences hit fast and hard. Brent crude oil surged past $100 a barrel out on March 8th, the first time in 4 years. It peaked at 126 per barrel. As of today, March 31st, U.S. gas prices have crossed $4 per gallon. What? For the first time since 2022, and oil executives and analysts are warning If the strait isn't reopened by ours mid-April, the supply disruption will double on us from roughly 4.5 to 5 million barrels per day lost to potentially 10 million barrels per day. Some Wall Street analysts are now gaming out scenarios where oil hits $200 a barrel. This is being described as the largest disruption to the global energy supply since the sort of 1970s oil crisis. And it's not just fuel. Petrochemicals made from oil go into everything: food packaging, clothing, agricultural fertilizers, medical supplies. The ripple effects are already being felt. Some parts of Asia, which depend almost entirely on Hormuz oil, are already facing shortages and rationing. Iran also struck a fully loaded Kuwaiti oil tanker, the Al Salmi, off the coast of Dubai this morning, raising the risk of an oil spill in the Persian Gulf. Kuwait's military confirmed it was responding to hostile missile and drone attacks. The EU's energy commissioner just wrote to member states warning them to prepare for a potentially prolonged disruption, particularly for jet fuel and diesel, which Europe is especially exposed to. In response, the US and allied nations are releasing 400 million barrels from strategic petroleum reserves, the biggest release on record. The US also temporarily lifted sanctions on some Russian and Iranian oil just to give the market breathing room. Trump's response to allies asking for help, and I quote, he told them to build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait, and just take it. Segment 3. The backdoor economics angle. What the headlines are missing. Okay, here's where we go deeper than the headlines. Everyone is focused on the jets, the strikes, the military scoreboard, but the real war right now is a toward war of economic attrition. Don't. Think about what the US is betting on with the B-52 deployment. They're not just bombing targets. They're sending a signal, a deliberate, visible, calculated signal that they can now operate inside Iranian airspace with impunity. The B-52 is enormous and slow precisely. Because the message is, we have so thoroughly destroyed your ability to fight back that we don't even need to hide. That kind of psychological signal is designed to accelerate one thing: regime collapse or capitulation. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain Khamenei, came out publicly and said the strait stays closed. But here's the economic pressure building on Tehran. Iran has been funding this entire resistance partly through illicit oil sales. Their ghost fleet, sanctioned tankers with their tracking signals turned off, has been quietly sailing to China. Since the war began, analysts tracked at least 81 Iranian oil-laden tankers heading to Malaysian and Southeast Asian ports. But here's the bind Iran is in. Their military infrastructure is being systematically destroyed. Over 11,000 targets. Their navy is decimated. 20 vessels gone. Their ballistic missile production sites are rubble. And now, with the B-52 flying overhead, their command and control is being targeted with relentless precision. Every day this continues, Iran's ability to threaten the strait degrades, and the moment Iran can no longer credibly threaten tankers, the oil flows again. Netanyahu himself said this week that the war has achieved more than half its aims, and that it's more than halfway done in terms of missions. So what does peace look like economically? The White House is signaling it's open to a deal. Hegseth confirmed at the Pentagon briefing that reopening the Strait of Hormuz is not, even listed as a core U.S. objective. The stated goals are eliminating Iran's nuclear program, destroying its ballistic missiles, and degrading its navy. Trump separately told journalists he thinks the strait will automatically open once Iran has no strength left. In other words, the U.S. is betting that military destruction creates economic leverage, and that the economic pain on Iran will force whoever survives in Tehran to eventually let the oil flow again. The question is, can the global economy hold out that long? Segment 4, the global fallout. Who's winning and losing? Let's run the global economic ledger. Who's bleeding? Asian economies, Japan, South Korea, India, rely heavily on Hormuz oil. They're facing fuel shortages and rationing right now. Europe. Energy Commissioner Jorgensen specifically flagged concerns about Dawi'ash jet fuel and diesel oil supply as winter storage runs low. Global LNG markets. Qatar's LNG plant has sustained missile damage the owner warned could take up to 5 years to repair. That's a permanent structural shock to the global gas market. The average American, $4 at the pump today. If the strait doesn't open by mid-April, analysts say the hit to the U.S. economy could be severe. Who's benefiting? Quietly. Russia. Trump temporarily waived sanctions on Russian oil to give the market breathing room. Russia is the alternative supplier. And every day Hormuz stays closed, Russian energy leverage grows. U.S. LNG exporters. America is the world's biggest LNG exporter. European buyers desperately needing supply are locked into long-term U.S. contracts right now. Saudi Arabia, quietly trying to increase output, selling into a market where prices are sky high. The diplomatic fault lines. Spain has blocked U.S. military aircraft from using its airspace or bases. France denied U.S. military planes loaded with supplies for Israel from flying over French territory. Trump responded furiously, calling France very unhelpful, and saying the U.S. will remember. Italy's defense minister reportedly blocked U.S. bombers from landing at Sigonella, Sicily. China and Pakistan released a joint 5-point initiative calling for an end to hostilities and security for shipping routes. Pakistan and China's motive here isn't idealism. China is one of Iran's biggest oil customers. Every day the strait is closed, Beijing is watching its energy lifeline get strangled. The U.S. currently has 50,000 troops. In the Middle East, the economic clock is ticking for everyone. Segment 5. What comes next? The 3 scenarios. So where does this go? Here's how I see the 3 most likely economic scenarios playing out. Scenario 1. Rapid resolution. The bull case. Iran's military capability collapses faster than expected. A new leadership faction negotiates. The strait reopens by mid-April. Oil falls back below $90. Global markets recover. This is the White House's stated bet, that maximum military pressure creates a fast off-ramp. Scenario 2. Prolonged war. The bear case. The strait stays closed past mid-April. Oil supply disruption doubles to 10 million barrels per day. Prices spike toward $150, $200 a barrel. Recession risk in Europe and Asia becomes real. Inflation reignites in the U.S. just as the economy was stabilizing. This is the scenario oil executives are privately most worried about. Scenario 3. Negotiated stalemate. The U.S. achieves its core military objectives. Nuclear program eliminated, ballistic missiles crippled, but a full peace deal takes months to negotiate. Iran keeps partially blocking the strait as a bargaining chip. Oil stays elevated between $100, $130. The global economy absorbs a permanent energy price shock, and the world begins serious structural investment in non-Hormuz energy routes for the first time since the 1970s. Right now, Scenario 3 looks most likely to me. And from a pure economic standpoint, the group that wins in all 3 scenarios is U.S. domestic energy producers and LNG exporters. The B-52 flying over Iran isn't just a military headline. It's a data point, a signal about where power has shifted, what leverage looks like, and who's going to be paying for this war, in oil prices and inflation, in the restructuring of global energy markets that will take years to play out. Backdoor economics. No, that's exactly what we're here for. To pull back the curtain on what the headline doesn't tell you. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening and what it means for your money, then do 3 things right now. Hit subscribe, so you never miss the economic angle. Drop a comment. Tell me which scenario you think plays out and why. So share this video, because most people watching the news right now have no idea how deep the economic rabbit hole goes. Until next time, follow the money, question the narrative, and stay sharp.